of these cases and the chairman of the PUC. I would like initially to let the record reflect that the notice of the consumer session was originally made on August 10th. An amended notice of the consumer session was issued on August 11th. And the commission has in its files affidavits of publication regarding the notice of the consumer sessions. And I would like to begin today's consumer session hearing from Nevada Power, doing businesses in the energy. Good evening, Mr. Elisegi. If you could fully introduce yourself and spell your name on the record.
Good evening, Chairman Reynolds. Thank you. First of all, my name is Sean Elisegi. That's S-H-A-W-N, last name E-L-I-C-E-G-U-R. I am responsible for MD Energy's customer operations. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and provide an overview of Nevada Power's annual or triennial independent rate review filing, which was made June 5th.
Can you talk louder?
We can't hear you.
The mic's not on. Is that better?
That is better, thank you, and I apologize for that. And before you begin further on the presentation, Mr. Elisegi, I'd like you to include in your presentation the amendments that have been filed by NV Energy pursuant to the Commission's ruling in docket 17-07026 regarding Assembly Bill 405 in the direction of the Commission to include the proposed rate increases in that docket into the general rate case.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. I apologize for not being too close to the microphone. It's been a while since I've been in the hearing room. So on June 5th of this year, Nevada Power Company made its triennial independent rate review proceeding, otherwise known as a general rate case. This proceeding involves the company's, what we like to call core operation costs. These are the costs of owning, operating, maintaining a safe, reliable electrical grid and generation facilities. And then pursuant to Nevada regulations, the company makes a certification filing. Certification filing in this case came in three components: a cost of capital certification filing, a revenue requirement certification filing, and then a rate design filing. So the amendments that you referred to were changes that we made in the rate design certification filing, and I'll describe those briefly in just a moment. In the original filing, the company identified a revenue deficiency, that is additional revenue that is necessary to operate and maintain the grid safely. The company's primary proposal was to not have an increase in the revenue needed for core operations, and that was approximately $31 million. In the revenue requirement certification filing, the company identified a slightly smaller revenue deficiency of about $28 million. In the certification filing related to rate design, which came out after, as you mentioned, the Commission's order in 17-07026, the company made a proposal first to combine categories of customers. Previously, customers who owned generating facilities were separated from customers who did not own generating facilities. So the company's primary proposal in modification in that certification filing was to combine customers who own generation with those who do not, and that led to an increase in the overall revenue that was necessary from the residential class of customers, approximately 1.89% or 1.8%. And then the second element, pursuant to the Commission's direction, as well as in response to Assembly Bill 405, was to alter its pricing structure for residential customers. And the first component of that was to decrease the volumetric rate, or the per unit rate for electricity charged, which was offset by an increase in the basic service charge, or the monthly charge. That was driven to bring uniformity across classes of customers, to have a basic service charge that reflects approximately 100% of what are known as customer costs, system costs, and local facilities costs, or those facilities that are closest to the customer. That's the amendment. And what that would result in, pursuant to the certification filing, is a basic service charge of $16.76 for single-family residential customers, with a decrease in the electricity rate to about 10.948 cents. That also results in a lower basic service charge on a monthly basis for customers who own generation. Overall, the impact on
If I can just jump in quickly. So the proposal by NV Energy is to increase the fixed monthly basic service charge to $16.76.
That's correct, sir.
And what is it currently?
It's currently $12.75.
So it's approximately a monthly increase of $4.01.
In the basic service charge, it's important to recognize that in the rate design component of the case, you take a revenue and you spread it across customer class. So what that results in is, because you have a volumetric charge and a monthly basic service charge, you end up with essentially the same average monthly bill, because while there's a change in the basic service charge, an increase in this case, the per unit rate is a lower rate, so when that lower rate is applied to average usage, you get the same monthly bill as you would have with a $12.75 basic service charge, but a higher volumetric rate or per unit rate. In this case, there is an increase in the average monthly bill for the single-family residential class, and that is attributable to the combination.
Can't hear you.
That is attributable to the combination of two separate categories, previously were separate categories of customers, those who own generation with those who do not, and the mixing of the costs of serving those two categories of customers into a single category. The only other basic element that I would highlight about the application is that if approved, the proposals made in this case will take effect January 1, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Eliseki. Is there a member from the Nevada Attorney General's Office, Bureau of Consumer Protection, that would like to make an appearance on the record?
Yes. Good evening, Chairman Reynolds. Paul Stuff here from the Nevada Attorney General's Bureau of Consumer Protection. The Bureau of Consumer Protection's office was established decades ago to protect the interests of consumers and small businesses in the utility forum. The role of the Bureau of Consumer Protection is to represent Nevada residential and small business ratepayers in proceedings like this one. Ratepayers deserve reliable utility service at the lowest reasonable cost. The Bureau of Consumer Protection is a team of highly qualified and dedicated accountants, engineers, economists, experts, and attorneys that are reviewing cases as submitted by Nevada Power Company and other utilities. We analyze the position of the company and then present our case to the Public Utilities Commission for its consideration. We ask formal questions of the company, retain experts, and present that case. Today, however, we're here to hear from you, the Nevada ratepayer, and the impact which this case, if adopted, would have upon you, and we want to hear your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, and would like to note for the record that the Bureau of Consumer Protection does have a motion that's pending before the Commission that was filed on August 7th, requesting additional public noticing and an additional consumer session with respect to the amended filing by NV Energy. And that's something that's pending before the Commission right now, but very much share your concerns with making sure that there is public notice of these important issues, because that's really what the consumer session is about, is to make sure that the public is as informed as possible and has an opportunity to comment on the proposals regarding their energy bills. And so there is a possibility that we will be doing an additional consumer session regarding these filings. And I anticipate a decision on the pending motion very soon.
Thank you, Chairman.
And is there any thing additional the Bureau of Consumer Protection would like to put on the record with respect to how they believe the noticing should be regarding the consumer session?
We believe that what we put in our motion filed last Thursday basically encapsulates the issue. We don't want to have it litigated here at this consumer session. We'd rather have you take it in the regular course and decide.
No, and I appreciate that. Just wanted to give you the opportunity if you wanted to read that noticing provision into the record, because I don't intend to hear the motion at tonight's proceedings.
No, that's fine, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And then, so do we have anyone from the PUC and regulatory operations staff?
Yes, good evening. My name is Shelley Cassidy. I am an assistant staff counsel with the regulatory operations staff. The regulatory operations staff is an independent investigative arm of the commission. Staff consists of engineers, accountants, economists, and lawyers. And staff has a statutory right to appear, participate in, and investigate all filings with the commission. Following staff's investigation of filings, such as this general rate case, we present our recommendations to the commission as an independent party. Staff's primary role and goal in these cases is to balance the interests of utility shareholders with the interests of utility ratepayers, and to ensure that the utility is providing safe, reliable service at a reasonable cost. And so tonight we have various members of staff here that we look forward to hearing any comments or concerns you have about the filing, and perhaps anything that you would like us to look into in particular in this general rate case. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cassidy. As I just mentioned earlier, the purpose of the consumer session with respect to the general rate case is to provide an opportunity for the public to comment on the proposals before the commission. The hearings with respect to these filings are set to commence on Wednesday, October 4th at 9 a.m. And there's several hearings that are scheduled to occur thereafter. NRS chapter or statute 704.069 subsection 1 mandates that we do the consumer session for a general rate case filing. And so with that, I have a series of cards from members of the public who are requesting an opportunity to speak and give comment on the proposals. I'm going to call out the card numbers in the order that we have them received, and if you have not submitted a card, I'll then give you an opportunity after going through the cards for anyone else who would like to give comments. I would ask that the comments be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. The first comment request that we have is Mr. Barry Gold.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Barry Gold. I'm the Director of Government Relations for AARP Nevada. On behalf of the 336,000 Nevada members of AARP, we have the following comments. Many of our members are on fixed or limited incomes. The average Social Security income in Nevada is only $1,250 a month. For many of them, utilities represent a larger percentage of their expenditures each month than for other people with more income, so the burden falls especially hard on them. AARP was shocked and saddened to learn in the rate design certification recently filed by NV Energy that the company now proposes to increase the basic service charge for Nevada residential customers in Southern Nevada from $12.75 to $16.76, a 31% increase, and to raise those customers' rates about 2.01%. This is a complete reversal in what was originally proposed by the company when it stated its general rate case proposed no rate changes for residential companies. So now it appears that NV Energy is asking that its non-solar customers be paying more because of mixing its classes. AARP is also concerned about the notice in this case and for this consumer session. The notice in this case, as stated in the bill inserts, reflect no increase for single-family residential customers, yet now the company is asking for a rate increase. Although AARP monitors PUC filings and was able to learn of the new proposed increase, it is unlikely that the general public is aware of this newly proposed rate increase. If they had known about it, this room would be full of people wanting to make a comment upon it. So AARP, on behalf of our 336 members, we support Bureau BCP's motion to renotice this consumer session and have another one. That would be a very good idea and would allow public input. Increasing the basic service charge in rates this dramatically hurts low-income customers before they can even turn on a light switch. Shifting more fixed cost on customers in the form of a higher monthly customer charge sends the wrong signal about electricity usage and is contrary to the policy to encourage energy conservation. When the monthly customer charge increases, the incentive to reduce usage to save on the monthly bill is thwarted. A customer who uses less may experience a higher bill because the impact on the monthly customer charge. This gives low-income customers with low usage less control over their energy bill. So AARP, on behalf of our 336,000 members, strongly opposes any request to increase the residential customers' basic service charge and increase their rates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. The next speaker that we have, and forgive me if I don't pronounce this correctly, is Mr. Michael Sklanowski.
You got it. That's the way it's spelled, Sklanowski. Chairman Reynolds, is it?
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Hey, could you pull the microphone?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, and make sure it's on. I think the green light on the bottom of the mic.
Right, I believe it's on.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Anyway, my name is Michael Sklanowski, and I'm an NV Energy customer in Henderson. I'm here to make you and the public aware of billing issues that should be investigated before the Commission gives any consideration to any proposed rate increases by NV Energy. Before I proceed with my statement, I find it enlightening that the Nevada Bureau of Consumer Protection and the Attorney General's Office filed a motion with you on September 7th that cites Nevada Revised Statute NRS 704-110, paragraph 3. And that, in essence, states, in determining whether to approve or disapprove any increased rates, the Commission shall consider evidence in support of the increased rates based upon actual recorded results of operations and changes in the costs of securities which are known and are measurable with reasonable accuracy. My personal experience with NV Energy potential inaccuracy with respect to net metered billing may affect all Nevada Power Company electricity customers. Recently, I suspected I was being overcharged for my electricity. I contacted NV Energy and was assured that my bills were correct. To prove the accuracy of my bills, the company provided me with computer files of raw data from their billing system and a document titled Understanding Your Bill. I spent 3 weeks analyzing the data from the past 3 years. The data I received are incomplete and full of errors and don't match my bills. And furthermore, every error is in NV Energy's favor. For example, in a 127-day data sample that covers May 1st through September 4th, 2017, I found 9 days with 15-minute meter outages. This means 7% of the days had errors. There were 37 such 15-minute lapses, or nearly 10 hours of unaccounted billing. Each lapse lasted between 15 minutes and an hour. I'd like to point out that my background includes experience at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory as a systems engineer and as a supervisor at KPMG, the internationally known accounting firm. I have the technical know-how and audit background to analyze the data provided to me by NV Energy. I contacted NV Energy and met with a representative named Rick Campbell at their Las Vegas headquarters. I showed him my calculations and methodology. He agreed that the data did not match my bills. He agreed to take the data, reconstruct my bills, and prove to me that my bills are true and correct. The next day, I summarized our July 25th, 2017 meeting in an email to Mr. Campbell. After not hearing from him for 4 weeks, I received a call from Brandon Weatherspoon, who is a customer service supervisor. On August 29th, I met Mr. Weatherspoon at the NV Energy office. He also promised to use the same raw data to reconstruct my bills. It is now September 11th, 2017, and I'm still waiting for NV Energy to prove to me I'm wrong. Maybe they're ignoring me because I'm 71 years old. Maybe they're ignoring me because they just figured nobody would be able to actually go through all the raw data they provided. Maybe they thought I would just go away. The facts are, I brought a potential problem with NV Energy's billing system to their attention, and I have been ignored. The billing computer and billing software that generates my bills generates bills for thousands, if not a million, NV Energy customers. If I'm being overcharged, this likely means it's happening to many others. NV Energy's inability to recreate my bills from the same raw data they provided me is at best incompetence. At worst, it is a cover-up of deliberate overcharging, especially if there are hidden data with no public transparency. I asked the Public Utilities Commission to postpone a vote on any proposed rate increases until an independent audit of NV Energy, also known as Nevada Power Company, can be made. Nevada Power must show everyone that their billing system has not and does not continue to systematically overcharge customers. I can provide all details that support my conclusions, including raw data, computations, and actual bills to the Commission and to other interested parties. I thank you for considering my points in this important matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sklanowski. Appreciate you being here. Before we proceed further, I just want to ask our technical sound gentleman from the Commission in the back to make sure that these proceedings are being recorded. Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
this is Shelley Cassidy. Mr. Skonowski, I would recommend that you speak perhaps with a member of our Consumer Complaint Resolution Division. They could perhaps work with you on that concern that you've just raised.
I have already emailed all the parties at the Attorney General's office.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Bruce Ruger. Good evening.
My name is Bruce Ruger. I'm an optional.
Speak into the mic.
My name is Bruce Ruger. I'm an NV Energy optional residential service time of use customer. I noticed in the application that NV Energy is proposing a number of additional time of use like rate schedules. And I noticed that those proposals indicate that the summertime peak would occur weekdays June through September. In looking at the volume 2 of the application, Exhibit 1A, there's a table of contents on page 28 indicating that there are changes to the optional residential service time of use tariff. However, in looking at the proposed rate schedule changes, I find that there is no revised rate schedule for that tariff, in that it should, if it's in the same order as the table of contents, it should appear after page 50 of volume 226, volume 2 of 26 of the application. So I was wondering what is proposed for optional residential service time of use.
Mr. Alaseki, could you address Mr. Ruger's question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll do my best. This involves the intersection actually of two cases pending before you. In this case, Nevada Power proposed moving all weekends in the summer season to off-peak hours for both residential and small commercial customers. I don't have the application in front of me, so if we failed to include a tariff sheet, that would be an oversight, but correct. However, in docket 17-07026, which also involves the implementation of Assembly Bill 405, Nevada Power was required in that filing to propose an optional time of use schedule that was designed to incentivize or provide an incentive for customers to install battery storage. And in that filing, Nevada Power proposed to replace all existing time of use schedules with a single time of use schedule that involves a multi-part rate as a basic service charge, a demand charge, and a time variant, as well as a peak demand charge, as well as time variant rates. So you have to look at the intersection of the two cases in order to look at the total impact on time of use customers.
Well, that's not particularly helpful in me figuring out what my rates are going to be next year. Where do I find that proposal?
That proposal, again, is in docket 17-07026, which is a filing made
July 28th.
July 28th with the Public Utilities Commission of that. Let me do this, sir. I'll give you a business card, and if you don't mind giving me a phone call, I'll help you answer that question. Okay?
Also, when the smart meter were proposed and went into service, the NV Energy website indicated that they would provide means to allow consumers to evaluate the various rate schedules to determine which type of rate schedule they should adopt. Now with this latest filing, there are several additional types of residential service rate schedules which are proposed. I would like the Commission to require NV Energy to provide such assistance on their website so that customers can make an intelligent choice of the rate schedule to adopt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruger. And to try to help give you a little bit more information, as Mr. Elisegi was mentioning in docket 17-07026 on Assembly Bill 405 that was passed by the Nevada State Legislature, there is a time variant or time of use investigation and inquiry that was still proceeding in that docket. And pursuant to that legislation, the Commission has until March 15th of 2018 to reach a decision on that. So that's something that you may want to monitor as well.
Okay, so changes in time of use schedules is suspended pending the resolution of that docket. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. It's a parallel proceeding that is also occurring. Thank you. Next we have Mr. Jonathan Frederick.
Chairman.
Good evening.
My name is Jonathan Friedrich. It's spelled Jonathan Friedrich. I'm here to voice my opposition to any increase in electric rates to either residential or commercial ratepayers. I moved to Las Vegas when I retired. Like tens of thousands of other retirees, we located here because the cost of living was affordable when our incomes were reduced. Unfortunately, that has drastically changed due to the never-ending recent increases in taxes and fees. These include the Commerce and Margins Tax, which increases our costs of goods and services, the Gasoline Indexing Tax, the increase in the sales tax, and the outrageous fees the Water District adds to our bills, and now requiring ratepayers to subsidize the solar generating customers for excess solar generation. Assemblyman Chris Brooks, who is my representative and a very wealthy man, along with Senator Pat Spearman, led the charge this past session in Carson City to cause these proposed rate increases which benefit the solar companies on the backs of senior citizens and lower income individuals. Maybe they have a lot of money to keep paying for the necessities of everyday life, but most others are not so lucky. I, for one, keep my thermostat set at 84 degrees in the summer. No longer fill my backyard pool in order to help reduce my water bills. My next cost savings will be to buy candles to further reduce my electric bills. There are 3 more dockets that will cause additional increases. How much more money does Warren Buffett need? Before you take the easy but hurtful action by raising our electric bills, think of all of the retirees and veteran retirees, and don't forget the low-income wage earners who live in Las Vegas. Please include this statement into the docket for today's hearing and include it with the transcript. Thank you.
And it will be. Thank you for your comments.
Who shall I give it to?
Right here, she'll take it. Thank you.
That answers that question. Thank you.
Thank you. We next have Mr. Greg Ferrante.
What's that? Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Reynolds.
Good evening.
My name is Greg Ferrante. I represent 3,500 plus members throughout the state of Nevada. I am the chairman of the Nevada Solar Owners Association and speak on behalf of my members. We were formed very quickly after the events of January 2016. Most of my members own their solar generation systems. They've invested in those in order to escape high prices and huge monthly bills, myself included. Just for the record, I spent $80,000 on a solar panel system on my house to over $650 a month in energy bills. And now I'm enjoying the savings, which is very helpful. The net generation program that NV Energy put forward 10 years ago was fantastic. It's worked fine for 10 years. Everybody's been happy. And then all of a sudden, when the industry takes off, now they're not. Understandable. I do own a business. I understand that they need to make money. So I don't begrudge them that. But what I do find unusual is that we have all of these events occurring around a very peak time where the legislature has come forward and said, no, you can't do that. As further evidence, the consumers and the voters of the state have made it very clear that they want to deregulate the energy industry for this very reason. Just so you know, more people voted for the affirmative of voting regarding that, which is more people than voted for our legislators in our General Assembly combined. So, on behalf of NVSOA tonight, I would like to point out very clearly that NV Energy is shamefully trying to use homeowners who invested in rooftop solar, like myself, as scapegoats to raise fixed charges on all Nevadans. The Public Utilities Commission just did the right thing by rejecting the utility's latest proposal to raise rates, and they must do so again during the general rate case. The legislature has made it clear, and consumers have made it well known, that we want our investments in rooftop solar, clean energy protected. Consumers should be put ahead of NV Energy's profits. That's why many Nevadans are supporting energy choice in a competitive market. The Public Utilities Commission should reject this proposal to stop NV Energy from raising energy rates. One thing I would like to point out from our last speaker is that NV Energy had enough money to spend political commercials to blame rooftop solar owners all last year. If they're running short on money, there's probably 3 times what they're asking for in this rate increase, for which they could cut in senseless spending. Please keep that in mind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ferranti. The next speaker that we have is Ms. Angel DeFazio. Good evening, Ms. DeFazio.
Good evening, Joe. For the record, Angel DeFazio, D-E-F-A-Z-I-O. You noticed the public upon initial filing with proposed rates being presented with no increase, with the disclaimer that they can go up or down along with the dates of the hearing. Common sense would dictate that the consumer sessions be held after the hearings, as it's a well-known fact that everything is in flux during the docket. Now, on September 10th, your public information officer, Peter Costas, issued a press release. Now, earlier tonight, we heard Mr. Elisagi state the rates are going to go up about $16 per month. Okay, but your PIO gentleman says the rates are going from $12.75 to $21. Does anybody know what's going on? That's number one. Number two is these increases are unacceptable. We know that the Energy Choice Initiative is going to pass in 2018. So down the road, this is all going to be moot. Since NVE can do a mid-triennial GRC, which is most likely they're going to do in January with Sierra Pacific, why screw the public for 3 years? As your own clock that shows on your website, that in the last 90 days, that there is not even 10% of Tier 1 for applied capacity, and even less for installed capacity. Where is this mad rush of people who want but haven't signed up? When a solar company, I believe it was Vivient, during the hearing stated that they were holding back all their applications pending the determination of 17-07026. So is that going to make the clock move faster? These rates should be calculated at the current rate of installation, not inflated, projected installations that are creating massive increases. This is, maybe you should boil the frog, AKA ratepayers, slowly. Now, I don't know if I'm the only one who figured this out, or maybe I'm wrong. But isn't it unique that the NEM customers are now in with the non-solar customers? And they're paying as part of their charge for their reimbursement. So they're paying to get money back at the end of the month. What is this, Common Core math? This is insane. Either they're going to get their full 95% or tell them how much they're really going to get. Don't you think that's viable? So I question and support the BCP's motion that what was presented in the paper definitely needs to be revisited. But also, how many people actually read the legal notices in the RJ? Nobody. How many people actually get the RJ rather than reading it online? Most of the people. What about the Nevada appeal? How many people even know about that? So why can't you go to the media and do a PSA? They're here today. Why don't they turn around and mention that there is a consumer session? The public will be made aware of that. But no, you do everything with the most minimal amount to avoid public input, such as eliminating the 1 p.m. consumer session that has always been in effect. Don't look puzzled. Go back and pull everything prior to you coming here. Every consumer session was a 1 and 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DeFazio. The next public speaker that we have is a Mr. Fred Volz.
Good evening. For the record, Fred Volz.
Good evening.
I also agree that the 1 p.m. session and not having it is a great deterrent to people who don't tend to come out at night, and it needs to be restored. It has been historically in place prior to your arrival in October, Mr. Reynolds. I also support the BCP's position and petition. I believe that there needs to be a renotice and clarity about what will be going on, what has gone on in terms of the change of rates. Specifically, the bill insert is designed for somebody who might like spreadsheets, but it's not designed for clarity. My suggestion there to the PUC employees who are involved in reviewing these, and also to NVE, would be to put 2 columns of information. One column would be with no change, one column would be with the proposed change by each one of these, rather than having 2 separate schedules that you have to keep going back and forth and flipping the bill insert to reference. And speaking of clarity, I counted up the original filings, 7,974 pages. This is absolute insanity. To expect somebody to not only put it together and the cost to the ratepayers of hiring people that put this into a usable form, the amount of time and money that's spent, it doesn't lend any clarity to the average ratepayer. It needs to be simplified. There needs to be a Reader's Digest version of all of those pages, even if they are there as backup. And it would be very helpful to know how much NVE has to spend on compliance, both with the PUC and FERC and all the other alphabet soup government agencies, and because we're paying for all of that. And so I'm not seeing any streamlining effort in the filing, and that's a sad commentary. Regarding the authorized rate of return, the amount that the company is allowed to earn, in looking at 10-year investment grade corporate bonds, they're currently paying 3.5% to 4%. 10-year T-bonds from the US government, 2.09%. 30-year T-bonds, 2.706%. 5-year CDs, 1.45%. Juxtaposed with an 8+% authorized rate of return, it's absolute absurdity. The company is allowed to earn way too much as a monopoly. This needs to be changed. Another way of changing the filings to streamline them would be to have one database of witness biographies rather than having them in each and every filing, repeating at the same time. It would save the PUC storage space with its computer systems. And it would also be helpful to know the impact of all increases for the last year, summed and disclosed. That would include purchase power costs, as well as any interim increases that have been allowed, so that the ratepayers know exactly what's happening to their bills, rather than this piecemeal one bill insert, then another one each quarter. It does not help clarity. We don't see in the filings any questions asked back and forth between the various parties that are participating, and which should be disclosed to the public to know what is being questioned about this. We also have seen no indication of cost reductions in the general and administrative expenses, which were promised almost 4 years ago when Warren Buffett purchased NVE. And that concludes my remarks for tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Volz. Are there any other members of the public who would like to give comment? Hearing and seeing none, for the record, a couple things I would like to state. We do have the pending motion regarding rescheduling and re-noticing an additional consumer session. I don't, just procedurally, I don't want to decide that motion tonight, because there's still potential for opposing parties to respond to that motion, but it is something that I am very receptive to and inclined to do. The purpose of these proceedings, again, is to notify the public. I appreciate the comments about having an additional session in the afternoon. Some of the theories of this was in the evening when most folks get off work, but if it's more accommodating to some to have an additional session in the afternoon, that's something that is the chair of the PUC that I want to do. With respect to concerns that are brought up regarding antiquated noticing, that's something, being a lawyer myself, that a lot of legal proceedings are looked at regarding that, because we have a changing way of distributing information. Some folks would say that delivered mail is getting antiquated. Reading the newspaper is just one way this information is noticed, in addition to bill stuffers that are done by NV Energy, in addition to press releases and notification that's done by the Public Utilities Commission. But I appreciate those comments regarding that, because again, the purpose of these proceedings is to get more public input, not less. Are there any final remarks by NV Energy, Mr. Lasecki?
No, sir.
Are there any final remarks by the Bureau of Consumer Protection?
Thank you. Obviously, the DCP looks forward to your decision of this matter, because we think there are a lot of ratepayers that really would like the notices they receive to reflect the reality that they believe they're going to get down the road. So, thank you, and we look forward to your decision.
To be clear, I agree with that concern very much. Again, the purpose is to have accurate public notice so the public is aware of potential impacts to their monthly bills. That's why these proceedings are written into law. And if we need to redo it, and NV Energy needs to issue new bill stuffers, that's something, again, I want to get done. I just don't want to decide that motion tonight in these proceedings. And is there any additional comment from the Bureau, PUC and regulatory staff, Ms. Cassidy?
None other than we just want to thank everyone who took the time to come out and give us your feedback. We appreciate it. Thank you.
With that, I'd like to conclude tonight's consumer session. There is a general consumer session that will be held here tomorrow night at 6 p.m. And so where we will open this forum up to comments beyond the scope of the pending applications by NV Energy to general matters that the public would like to express to the commission. And so thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.